Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I am thrilled to bring you a special 5-part series on the evolution of compliance from disconnected to connected. This podcast series is sponsored by Gan Integrity. First, a few words from our sponsor, Gan Integrity. I had the chance to speak with the team at Gan Integrity, or GAN as they like to call it, which offers truly connected compliance technology. Through this process, I learned about how their platform is transforming the way compliance teams function. GAN has an interesting story, having started as a compliance consultancy in Europe back in 2004. During their work with global organizations, they realized there was an opportunity to create a new type of technology platform, and they have done just that. GAN Connect has 6 integrated modules that can power your entire compliance program. Today, GAN works with an impressive list of companies across the globe and is growing rapidly. In fact, they just closed a $15 million Series B in funding. GAN is thinking about compliance in a whole new light and solving critical problems the industry has had for years. I enjoyed getting to learn more about connected compliance, and I know you will too. The topics we take up in this series include what is disconnected compliance and how can compliance become connected, how to build a connected compliance program, how connected technology works, and finally, the human side of compliance. In this episode 1, I'm joined by Valerie Charles, the Chief Strategy Officer at Gan Integrity, to take a look at what is disconnected compliance. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I am back for our first episode on a really interesting 5-part podcast series. Today, I'm joined by Valerie Charles, the Chief Strategy Officer at Gan Integrity. And as you know, this podcast series will take up the topic of connected compliance. So, Valerie, first of all, thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Valerie, I'm really excited to visit with you about this because of your professional background, both inside as in-house, outside counsel, and now with Gan Integrity, to really get your views and your thoughts on how compliance is disconnected today.
Yeah, no, it's been very interesting for me here working at Gan Integrity, where the overarching mission is to connect compliance using technology. But I actually think that connecting all the folks that work in the compliance department is really important too, and can be facilitated, by having integrated technology. I guess in general, I think it's often with the companies that we work with, it's pretty normal that, the folks who are investigators and working on internal investigations and managing those things, they may be different than the people who are assessing risk overall. And that may be a different group than the people who are, managing third-party risk, for example. I think that when you are the CCO and you're overseeing all of that, it can be very difficult for all of those pieces and parts of a working program to be siloed. And so I think to have at least a technology where those things are integrated, it makes the life easier of the CCO to have transparency into what everybody's doing, and ultimately just to be able to, I think, operate the program in a little bit more of a holistic way, rather than sort of, focusing on whichever part of the program is getting attention on a given during a given day or time period.
So I've got sort of my own theories on why compliance is disconnected, but before I give you those, I wanted to really get your views on why that really, and once again, drawing upon your entire professional experience.
I don't think it's unusual. I think if we look at, any other business unit, you see historically the same types of disconnection within that business unit. The people who work in HR, the folks who do certain parts of training, they may just only do training and follow the statistics and data relating to training. And I think that it wasn't until you got standard bearer technology in the HR unit that you started having HR leadership really have the full view of what's happening in that business unit. And I think that compliance is just a little behind all the other business units. There was a time when finance was, very disconnected and people were working in disconnected spreadsheets. And of course, now we know that, all global finance teams work on sort of standard platforms, and all sales teams work on Salesforce. I mean, these are things that are a given, but they weren't always a given. And I think that compliance is really the last business unit to have a go-to platform that allows leadership, both compliance leadership and other leadership in the organization, to be able to put all of that data in one place, to easily see reports that are relevant to whoever's viewing that particular report. So long and short is, I think it's a disconnected business unit at the moment. I think it's improving. I think people are starting to really understand the massive benefit of having integrated, connected data, and it's technology that facilitates that. Certainly it's leadership style as well, but I think that the good technology really helps that process along. That's what we're seeing.
So I guess from my perspective, I would actually articulate it a little bit differently, but it also speaks to two things, Valerie. One is why I'm excited to tell the story of Gan Integrity, but equally excited to tell this story about connected compliance, because I started in compliance in 2007, and it was lawyer-driven as a legal response to the FCPA. Very robust enforcement by the Department of Justice. As that robustness of enforcement continued, companies responded by putting in the compliance processes and then demanding their vendors and their agents on the sales side also put in compliance programs. And people like myself, who came from the corporate legal department, who have a legal training and legal background, struggled with the business process part. As the business process part became more important, Gan Integrity comes along. And Gan Integrity says, we can help provide you a technological solution to the business process in a way that not only people like me, i.e. lawyers, can understand, but also that compliance practitioners can put in place and then utilize with the rest of the business unit in the variety of departments that you articulated: HR, finance, accounting, the CIO, all of the other corporate functions, to really allow a connectedness for not only greater efficiency in compliance, but greater business efficiency, leading to greater profitability. So I see this as really a much more robust part of a journey that I saw begin 12 years ago. But what you guys bring to the table is really these specific tools, tactics, and techniques to do this.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, typically when I think about the disconnected nature of compliance units, I think about the disconnectedness within the compliance function. So like, I was mentioning before, the concept of having the ability to look at what's going on in conflicts of interest and due diligence and gift giving and receiving and internal investigations, all in the same set of reports, and to be able to sort of flip around and see how those things interrelate. But to your point, the maybe larger problem is also the disconnectedness to the rest of the business. So I think, having good communication and data feeds that go between the other business units: procurement, finance, the controller's office, audit, legal, HR. I mean, all of those players in the organization have data that matters to the compliance team. And also the compliance team offers data that may be very helpful and useful for those functions to do what they do. And so I think having the ability to have an easier way to flow that data and information between business units is absolutely critical. And again, I think at the end of the day, you're elevating the voice of the compliance function within the organization by allowing that type of connectedness.
Let's flip it a little bit, Valerie, because there are risks definitely associated with having disconnected compliance. What have you seen as some of the not only compliance risks, but legal and business risks?
Well, I mean, to your point about the evolution of, just as one example, and there are many others like this, but the evolution of the expectation that, you're not just vetting your business partners to make sure that they're not on some obvious I don't know, Google search or easy to see watch list. But you're expected to go a little deeper. You're expected to know whether those business partners have their own programs. How about their third parties? Are they vetting their own third parties? I mean, these things have evolved into something that requires more attention, and that means more information and more data and more homework. And it also means tracking how often you do those things. So it's not just doing it once at the outset of the relationship with the third party. It's having some way of ensuring that you're doing that with a regularity that is sensible, considering the risk that a given third party presents. I mean, that's it's kind of one example, but it's showing how, frankly, sometimes administrative the job can be, and that's an area where I do also support the concept of technology taking over some of those more administrative functions. Like, when is it time to vet the third party again? That's something that a technology should be following, not a person spending their sort of brain power on that. I mean, I also think that when you have these disconnected functions, whether it's again within the compliance function or just the disconnectedness between compliance and the other business units, you're also losing the ability for compliance to be the business enabler that it can be. I mean, these are necessary evils, but they don't have to slow down the pace of the business and the pace of revenue generation. I think really smart compliance leaders are very, very good at understanding the business and mapping the things that you need to do in the business, the controls that need to be in place, mapping them in a way that will slow down the revenue generation process as little as possible. And really good compliance people, they know how to do this, and they know how to leverage technology to support them.
Well, Valerie, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode, but I've been visiting with Valerie Charles, and we've been starting off an exploration of connected compliance by looking at what is disconnected compliance. Valerie, thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Always a good time. Thanks, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the evolution of compliance from disconnected to connected. I hope you'll join me again for the next episode tomorrow. It's a fascinating exploration of a topic that certainly resonates with chief compliance officers. This special podcast series, Evolution of Compliance from Disconnected to Connected, is sponsored by Gan Integrity. This podcast series is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network.